Welcome to Trial by Fire, an original podcast by Lexigate. In each episode, we sit down with women who built their own firms and redefined success on their own terms. Here's your host, Julia Hensel.
Welcome back to Trial by Fire, where we hear the inspiring stories of women who own their firms. So today I have the privilege of speaking with Mary Poole. Mary has an amazing perspective and has read a lot of loan documents in her life. For the first nearly 20 years, she saw loan documents from one side, the financial industry, and then now for the last 18, she has been helping Alabama families get out from under them. So Mary is a bankruptcy attorney and shareholder at Bond and Botus in Montgomery, Alabama. So Mary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be diving into your story. There's so much that we can learn from your experience. So I would love to just start from the very beginning. I know you spent almost 20 years in the financial industry before becoming a lawyer. I would love to hear a little bit first about your experience there and what you learned there that you've now taken with you to the other side of the table.
Absolutely. Well, I started out originally as a debt collector. Back then, we would actually go to people's homes and field call, if you will, to try to collect debts. And I transitioned from that to working for a bank. That's when I moved here to Montgomery, Alabama. And when I worked at the bank, I started out as a commercial lending assistant and worked my way up to where at the end I was marketing manager, a loan product manager for the national bank then. We had acquired many states, banks in many states at that time. So really from that side of things, just learned from beginning to end, how it operates, how to collect debts, how to put people into debts. My job really was creating products to entice people to come to our bank and be a great lender. And so from there, I decided to go to law school. And how that occurred is I met my husband, who was a lawyer, and his father was a lawyer. Now, they were general practitioners, and they primarily did a lot of criminal work. And so my husband asked me one day before I was even thinking about going to law school, hey, you mind sorting this file out? I was a little bit more organized than he was. And do you mind sorting this out for me and help me get the facts and all that so I can prepare? And so I started going through it, and I realized that the guy wasn't even charged with the right thing and didn't have evidence. And so I started talking to him about it, knowing nothing about law. Here I am thinking I know everything, which is usually the way it is when you want to go to law school. You already think you know it all. But and so when I met with my husband about it, and he was like, you're right. You caught this. And I was like, oh, God, he can do this. I know I can do this, So that's what inspired me to go to law school. I was doing great at the bank. Didn't really have any reason to change my profession other than I found one of the loves of my life, which was this is what I want to do. And I knew pretty much from starting law school that whatever I did, it was going to deal with finances. I had nothing or no desire to do criminal work. I had no desire to do personal injury, which is your big money maker, which is what my husband and my father-in-law did as well. And certainly they probably would have allowed me with open arms into their firm. But I found out real quickly, helping him out a few years, we do a lot better at home than we do working together. So anyway, so how I got the job here at Bond and Botus was back in 2008. And that was a time right after the law changed for bankruptcy code, if you will, back in 2005, which really kind of kicked off a lot of the numerous filings that the nation started to experience with bankruptcy. And so from there, I interviewed with our managing partner, who's still here, Gail Donaldson, who ironically started out as a legal assistant or receptionist. So she also has worked her way up here. And ironically, we worked in the same building even when I was at the bank, and I had no idea. She was right below me the whole time that I was working. So it's a small world. God makes, he puts people into your lives for a reason, and we'll transition, but it's kind of serendipity how that all turned out when we got to talking. So she took a chance on me, gave me a job, and it has been uphill from there. I have gotten a lot of clients out of debt. I must say that I like this side of things more than I did the banking world where I was putting people in debt.
Yeah.
There's so much joy it brings just watching people just have relief, and peace.
Yeah.
Because finance is not easy, it can create divorces, family struggles, and depression, and sadly, even worse. And if God can use me in any way to make sure that my clients can get out of debt or at least have some answers on how to deal with their debt, then I feel like I've lived a good life.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way of saying it. So I'd love to just hear a little bit more about, what have been some of the more meaningful folks that you've worked with or experiences that you've had throughout your career?
Yes. I've got so many that could stand out. I can tell you probably the hardest for me are those that are past retirement and doing everything that they can to live on a fixed income. They've worked hard, they've paid most of their house off, and yet their fixed income only goes a certain way. And it is difficult when those come in my office and, hey, I'm trying to save my car, I'm trying to save my house, and trying to figure out a budget that will work for them with their fixed income. However, I have many that have, and they struggle hard, but I can tell you those clients 100% will do everything in their power to make sure that they either finish their plan if they do a chapter 13, or if they're just wiping away their debts in chapter 7, they make it happen. And just to provide relief to those clients, to see the peace that they have, maybe, and even have clients that have lost spouses and now they're dealing with one income, and how do we make that work? Those cases, although emotionally they affect me the most, really, when I'm able to get them their discharge, nothing can bring me more joy. And I mean that really to every client, but those clients, especially in their retirement age, they're past that point of being able to, I'll get another job to help out, really makes a difference. Also, I have sadly some clients that are struggling with cancer, and they know if they call me, hey, I'm dealing with this, I will pray with them on the phone. We will make it happen. You're on my prayer list. And I do believe God answers prayers. And just to get some stress off people going through medical issues as well, because we need to focus on healing ourselves and our bodies. And it can't be struggling if we got debt collectors calling us every night, if we can't pay this bill, and you're sitting there and your kids are like, Mommy, I want to eat, or Mommy, I want these 7 things that my friend has. It can make you as a person feel like a failure. And I feel like part of my job is to explain to these people they aren't failures, and they should be very proud of themselves, because most of them have made it 5 to 10 years struggling and then come to see me, and I'm always like, you should have come earlier so you could have slept, and they're usually just like, I just can't believe how good I feel now, So I really feel like my job, I'm sure probably other attorneys do, but there's some type of higher calling involved when there's stress, and you can feel it in the room that it just kind of dissipates. Like it's done. Creditors can't harass me anymore. They can't call me anymore. I can focus on my kids. I don't have to cry myself to sleep at night. And sadly, those are cases that happen. But I have many, many other stories. I mean, I love helping, but so many stories that been able to provide discharges to my clients. One most recently, a lot of people think student loans can't be discharged. Well, that's not technically the case now. Technically, yes, the bankruptcy code says that can't happen. But being able to provide my client with joy to say, hey, the student loans have been on your back for 20 years. Guess what I just did? I got them wiped away for you. So if they owe the U.S. Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education is forgiving some of those debts and are allowing them to be discharged. So that also is just outstanding, and it makes me feel good that I'm able to allow someone to work through me to make a difference in these people's lives.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, you provide such a service to your clients, not only helping them with the tactical process of, how they handle things legally, but also really coming around them in this very emotional and challenging time. So I can imagine that means a lot. And they're also so lucky to have your experience, right? Of, they're hopefully only ever going through this once in their life, but you've seen this so many times. And so you can provide them a little bit of peace just knowing how the process is going to go down.
Yes. hmm Information is key. That really is with any type of firm that you have. Is us attorneys get a bad rap. Hey, they're not calling me, they're not keeping me informed. Most of the time, it's just because it's just so much that if I called you every time something happened, you would get stressful because I'm calling you.
Yeah.
So my job is to bear the brunt of the burden, and the only time I'm calling you is if for good news or if I really need to talk to you about something with your case. So, but communication, I think, is with any practice is have a good system in place on allowing your clients to communicate effectively with you when they need to so that they don't stay up all night. Oh my gosh, she didn't call me back, or oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I need to talk to her. Have multiple forms of communication so that they can reach you in some form or fashion.
Yeah. Do you have on that note, any tips for how you keep things organized and remember to follow up with clients? Like, do you use a case management system that's helpful for you?
Do. Yes,
Okay.
I do. We use Clio,
Okay.
and Clio has an excellent portal for clients that we use. So once we file cases, we kind of open that portal to them that allows them to be able to communicate with me directly, and also allows me to share documents from their bankruptcy case so they're not constantly asking me, how much was my payment again? Or when was it due? Or how do I make that payment? They can always refer back to that. So it's a central hub or location. It allows them to chat with me as well. I'm one that I don't hide my personal direct number from my clients. Like I said, I know we weren't recording, but I do treat my clients like family.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they can't reach me, then that is, I'm not doing my job. So if a client is called, and I need to follow up with them about something, I use Clio Tasks. That really helps me to follow up with this client later and lets me know what I'm following up for. For example, if I need a tax return to get to the trustee, or maybe we have a deadline for filing an objection to a motion to dismiss, then that task feature really helps me stay very organized. I don't have a tendency to put things on the calendar or book appointments on the calendar because a lot of times just peace of mind through a phone call is easy enough. But occasionally, once in a blue moon, a client says, I just need to come see you in person, and I'll make time for them for sure.
Got it. Okay. Maybe that's a good segue into more broadly, right? Like the practice management and case management side of things also segues into
Yes.
all the category of all the things that you didn't learn in law school about being a
Yes.
lawyer. And I know you went
Yes.
from being an associate to now a shareholder at the same firm, which means even more responsibilities around, business management, people management, marketing management, all those things. So what have been some of the toughest things to learn on kind of the business management side of the business, and what have you learned from the School of Hard Knocks there?
Well, I think when talking about law school, let's briefly cut on that a little bit. Is I went to Jones School of Law. I was the first accredited school year that graduated at Jones. Prior to that, it was really kind of a night school, and but they tried, but they didn't have really a lot of practice management classes. Okay. And the reason why that is, and I guess that's the reason why they call it practicing law, is because, until you jump in there and you really get into the nitty gritty of things, you can't really vision it for your particular firm. And you can't really have a cookie cutter approach to this is how I'm going to manage my practice. This is the client management system I'm going to use. This is how I'm going to get documents, because not everybody works the same. So you might be a visual person. I might be a paper person. Another might be, hey, I'm all technology, give it to me, without me having to talk to clients. But it's trying to find the best solution that really fits all kinds of personalities. That is the most challenging, I think, of trying to figure out your best practice management. And it really has been trial and error, because we started out years ago where we had a software program that literally, and it still exists today, that 90% of the law firms use to prepare petitions. And so it was kind of like the only thing we had. We didn't realize that there were other solutions, or that potentially there could be other solutions to get us there. So luckily, two more companies kind of threw into the loop. There's still some coming along the way, one more that's on its way. But trying out different systems, we've gone through, since I've worked here, one, two, I think we're on our third client practice management software.
Yeah.
We are on our second, pseudo third petition management software. I say pseudo third because we're kind of in the testing phase for a software program. And I love doing that too, even though I don't get paid for it. I love just getting into the software and making things happen and work faster for my clients. But that probably has been the most challenging, is then how do you implement that, figure out the right workflow for your firm. And the only way that you can really do it, I have found, is to be very flexible, open to communication and conversations with your staff, so you know what's working and what's not, and not being so pompous that you're not willing to change your formula.
Yeah.
Because that really only makes you be the one that suffers if
Yeah.
your staff's not happy. So it's just
Totally.
being open and listening, and how do we figure out what challenges they have today?
Yeah, I think a lot of firms kind of underestimate the change management that goes around implementing a new system, right? And the system is only as successful as the people using it and how much they use it. And so I think that's really good advice of, lots of times new technologies can seem exciting and shiny, but will it work for people? Can it be flexible enough to meet what actually makes sense for your firm's specific process?
And not to date myself, but I actually have memory of when the bank switched from paper. I was doing paper tickets on everything to a computer. Now,
Yeah.
granted, it was this little thing that I could text on. It didn't do much, but I remember being very resistant on the first computer that sat on my desk, because I was like, why am I using this? I'm much faster than this thing. And at the time I was, but it really did allow me to start processing more. Once I got over that hurdle of that I'm against this, I'm against change, your life really can change. We're in this AI world now too, that we're all trying to learn how do we navigate that effectively, to enhance our job, not to replace us, but to enhance what we do. Even my law partner, she was anti anything saved on a computer. It was all paper, 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 files, 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 until she saw, wait a minute, I can access all of this easily and have a backup and not have to go back in the back and pull the 20 files on my desk. And so once that happened, now she's miraculously keeping her desk clean. So,
Yeah.
and loves it. So it really, people, even though they may be opposed to change, it's being committed and being there for your staff, allowing them to vent and helping them work through the hurdle.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm curious on the AI topic, because a lot of firms are questioning this right now. What's going to be their approach? How much are they going to use it? What have been some of the conversations that your firm are on that?
Well, actually, I'm not opposed to AI. Our bar association's not as well, obviously, as long as I don't violate any of my ethical rules. And I'm never going to share any client data. What I may share is I have this problem. I need to solve this. This is the solution I'm trying to get. Is there any cases out there that can help me get there? And then I go to the cases and confirm those are definitely the cases. I would never allow something to write something for me. I mean, that's just one of the joys I have as being an attorney, obviously, but I have bar review experience. I do understand some attorneys are like anti-no, and that's okay. That's okay too. It's just, I take pride in what I write. And so, But yeah, we are using, I actually have several that I use. I use Perplexity, ChatGPT, Glade AI, which is a new platform that we use to help gather our documents from our clients, and our clients love it. So it's all secure. It's a secure
Hmm.
portal, if you will, that allows them to submit documents that we have to prepare petitions.
Hmm.
But the AI feature is just new and up and coming, able to analyze documents that we've been needing to do
Wow.
for years.
Yeah.
Um, that, where do you spend your money? You have to put that in your petition. What is your average you're spending? Well, clients are guessing. They don't know how
Hmm.
much they spend.
Yeah.
When I tallied it up one day, there's three of us at home. And I'm not the cook in the kitchen.
Hmm.
My husband cooks more than I do.
Hmm.
But I tallied it up one day and I'm like, how can a family of threes be spending $1,300 on food? Like, this
Yeah.
is insane. But if you had asked me without me looking at my bank account, I would say we spend $500-600. I
Yeah.
had no clue until I really dug
Wow.
into my budget and realized I got to start tracking every dollar. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it was just grocery here, DoorDash here, do this here, and then those things add up.
Totally. And AI is much better able to answer some of those questions than we can. I'm
Correct.
curious, based on what you're just saying, I think one of the very interesting things about what you do is that, living a financially healthy life is something that's relevant to everyone. So I'm curious, from your seat of, having seen the bankruptcy world from both sides, like, what is some kind of advice that you give either individuals or small business owners about how to best manage their financial habits?
Well, I think it's living within your means is probably the number one thing. I always, Dave Ramsey said it best. If anybody has ever done the Dave Ramsey program, one of my favorite sayings, he says, is you live today like no one else so you can live tomorrow like no one else. So, in a world of we're all trying to sometimes keep up with the Joneses, you want the latest, the greatest, the newest car, all this stuff. I mean, I do a carpool for my child, and these girls are constantly, Miss Mary, when are you going to buy a new car? And I'm like, look, I haven't had a car payment for years, and I
Right.
love my car. It fits me perfect, whatever. But
Hmm.
it's just living within your means is a good thing. And I also think the second most important is it's never too early to teach your kids about finances.
Mm.
And don't hide from your kids your failures.
Hmm.
Hey, mommy tried that, it didn't work. Now, obviously, everything is age appropriate. We
Hmm.
don't want to scare our kids thinking, oh my God, my parents have no money or anything. That's
Hmm.
that's not what's important. But it's just knowing that, hey, you can make failures and still
Yeah.
be amazing going
Yeah.
forward. And
Totally.
that's what is great about finances, because it really is a situation where today you might be struggling, but as long as you live by certain rules and you follow bankruptcy, for example, if you follow your Chapter 13 plan, you make your payments, being able to hand over in 3 to 5 years a discharge to these clients, and that frees up all that money. And I'm like, now's your time to make sure
Yeah.
you got your budget. Throw that money off to the side until you need it for a rainy day. Like,
Yeah.
follow the rules.
Totally.
So those are two important things that I really say, and never let these creditors bully you.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a debt collector. I know all the tricks. I get clients all the time saying, I'm going to be arrested. No, know the
Yeah.
law in your state. If you're scared about that, there are
Yeah.
bankruptcy attorneys that give free consultations, but never feel like or take any advice from a debt collector.
Right.
So
They have a very vested interest in how you proceed.
I got bonuses for everything I collected, and that's what I tell them. I'm like, they are in it to win it.
They're
They
not
are
your
trying to get
friend.
that money to get that bonus
Yeah.
at the end of the month. Yeah.
Makes total sense. And I love what you said about teaching your kids. I think so. Growing up, my mom is an accountant and my dad is a lawyer, so they're very we'd say nerdy on the kind of household finances thing. But every
Right.
year we had our financial year end as a family, and on August, I think it was August 1st, they would go through the balance sheet with me and my sister, and I thought this was like the most boring thing in the world at the time, because I wasn't quite as much of a business nerd as I am now. But anyway, yeah, in retrospect, I'm like, that was very helpful, because it just helps you dimensionalize
Yes.
what is, what do things cost, where does
Right.
money go, and that type of thing. And so anyway, I'm a firm believer in that as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing that they did that for sure. A lot of families should be doing that. My daughter's 12, so we're in the process of teaching her you have an allowance, and
Yeah,
those luxuries you want, mommy and daddy aren't buying anymore. So you've got
right.
to save in order to get it. And
Budget. Yeah.
she's a want now, now, now. As
Mm-hmm.
most 12-year-old girls are.
Right.
So it's just learning like, oh, I can't get it this week. I gotta wait a week. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Maybe on that note, I would love to hear a little bit more about life outside of work. And do you believe in the concept of work-life balance? Do you not? What does that look like for you?
I absolutely do. I know it can be difficult, especially in different practices. There may be others who are in different practices going, it's nice to leave at 5 or whatever. I don't have banking hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I do treat my clients like family. Um, but I do find that I have to put my phone down and do not
Mm.
disturb for a period of time,
Yeah.
for the best interests of my child. And those are just boundaries that you have to set. And you kind of have to, I mean, I could tell you all day long, this is what I do, but you have to figure out for yourself and your child what's best suited. If my child was like having more challenges in school, etc., I could see me probably not knocking off a little bit early to help her with tutoring or whatever like that. But fortunately, she's a pretty bright kid and doesn't have to crack a book like my husband and I did back in the day. But so she gets it naturally. But yes, I definitely think that is very important to have a work-life balance. And also, I think it's very important to say no,
Mm-hmm.
because you do have a situation in some firms, especially if you're a new, attorney or a new shareholder, they're going to look to you to be the doer. You're going to
Yeah.
do, you're going to hustle. But it's okay to say no. If you're doing your job and you just can't take on anymore, don't create more stress in your life than you don't have to. Then you don't want to do that. One, for your health too.
Mm-hmm.
I had my child when I was 43,
Mm-hmm.
so an older mom, and I got to be around till I'm 104. I've already promised her that's when I'm going to live
Yeah.
to. So I got to make it happen. I figure if I mentally tell myself it's going to happen, it's going to
That's
happen.
great. My husband's goal is to live to 120. He
Wow,
doesn't
that's
seem to
amazing.
care if I also make it to 120. I'm like, I don't know if I should be offended by that or what. But anyway, he's into all the longevity things. So anyway, I think it's great to have that kind of a goal. And I also really love what you said about putting the phone on do not disturb. Or for me, sometimes even I'm similar in that all of my clients have my cell phone number. And so sometimes I even have to put it in a different room, if I'm trying to stay
Yeah.
focused because otherwise it's too tempting when it just starts, making a lot of noise.
And your clients will understand that. I mean, now it's different if you don't call them back for weeks at a time.
Yeah.
But I have rarely had a client that has been upset, like, "Hey, you didn't call." Most are very understanding, and they know that you have a life. And as long as you're answering their question, they're appreciative of that. So,
Hmm. Absolutely.
99% of the time, I have very much success with my clients because of that. And I think that's mainly because I keep that open line of communication for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, to close out here, I would just love to hear a little bit about what's next. I don't know, other than living to 104, are there other goals that, as you think about, call the next 5, 10 years for you and the firm, anything that you're really hoping for?
Well, I can tell you that I am in a place where I've probably been the most happiest in what I'm doing. So job wise, it's 100% what I'm doing today.
Hmm.
And I pray that still with bond and bonus. But I can't see myself doing anything different. For the future, obviously, I've had a long career. I've worked since I was 13. So I see probably another 11 to 12 years before I finally retire and really start traveling. And by that time, my child will be out of college. I've already figured it up. So she won't hopefully have as many needs as she does.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important to have that goal of
Hmm.
retirement. A lot of us attorneys are, I'm doing it until I'm dead. And
Hmm.
sadly, what I've seen, especially, my father-in-law, who my husband worked for, he retired, and within a year and a half, he was deceased
Hmm.
because that was all he did. I mean, that
Yeah.
was his favorite thing. And I want to also enjoy life and enjoy life with my family. And so um, I hope to continue to keep getting people out of debt for the next 11 to 12 years and pass it on to somebody who's just as passionate.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful. And I love that also having, other things in life beyond your career as you retire to kind of look forward to as well. So thank you so much, Mary, for your time today. I can really tell your warmth and your care that you have for your clients, as well as your competence and skill as well. So I think we all learned a lot.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure talking to you.